Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go! My journey to this point started about 3 years ago when my husband and I found out we were expecting. We were over the moon, dreaming of all the milestones our little one would hit. But during a routine checkup, the doctor's face turned serious. They told us our baby might have Down syndrome. It was a lot to process. We went through a lot of emotions, fear, uncertainty, and eventually acceptance. When our daughter was born, we fell in love instantly. Sure, things were different than we'd initially imagined, but she was perfect to us. As she grew, we realized she needed extra support. She was hypotonic, meaning her muscle tone was lower than usual. It made simple things like holding her head up or crawling a bit more challenging, but we were determined to give her the best life possible. I had to quit my job to take care of her full time. It wasn't easy, especially since I'd always been career-oriented. But my daughter needed me, and that was all that mattered. My husband picked up extra shifts to make ends meet. When she turned 2, we decided to enroll her in daycare a couple of days a week. It would give her a chance to socialize and give me a breather. Plus, I could use those days for physical therapy appointments for my shoulder and joints. Years of desk work had taken their toll, and now with all the lifting and carrying, my body was protesting loudly. The stroller became our lifeline. At 27.5 pounds, my daughter was getting too heavy for me to carry, especially with my weak shoulder. The daycare had a special storage area for strollers, which was a godsend. So there I was on a regular Tuesday coming to pick up my daughter. I was looking forward to our evening routine, a bit of play, dinner, and then snuggling up with a book before bedtime. But as soon as I walked into the daycare lobby, I knew something was off. There was a red stroller in the middle of the room, just like mine. A boy, maybe 4 or 5, was half asleep in it. My stroller was nowhere to be seen in the storage area. A woman stood nearby tapping away on her phone. "Excuse me, did you borrow a stroller from the storage area?" "Oh yeah, my son was tired, and my car's on the far side of the parking lot. I didn't feel like carrying him." "I'm sorry, but that's my stroller. I needed to take my daughter home. Can't you just walk with me to my car? I'll give it back then." "No, I'm sorry, but I need it now. My daughter can't walk yet, and I can't carry her." "It's just for a few minutes. Don't be selfish." "Selfish? For wanting my own stroller?" I tell her, "Look, I understand your son is tired, but this is my property. I need it for my child who has special needs." "Oh please, all kids are special. Mine's just as tired as yours." My blood was starting to boil. How dare she dismiss my daughter's condition? My daughter has Down syndrome and can't walk. This isn't about being tired. Please, take your son out of my stroller. The woman rolled her eyes and started pushing the stroller towards the door. "I won't be long. You can wait." That was it. I snapped. I quickly moved and put my foot on the stroller brake, blocking her path. "You're not taking my stroller. Period." For a moment, we just stared at each other, and I could see the realization dawning on her face that I wasn't back in town. With a huff, she picked up her son and stomped towards the door. "You're being ridiculous. I hope you're happy." As she left, I could hear her muttering about unreasonable people and just trying to help her kid. I took a deep breath, trying to calm my racing heart. Just then, the daycare director walked in, looking confused. "Is everything alright?" I heard raised voices. I explained the situation, still shaking a little from the confrontation. "I am so sorry this happened. We'll make sure to implement a better system for the stroller storage to prevent this in the future. Thank you." I appreciate that. Honestly, I don't know how could someone be so entitled. People might not always understand our struggles, but I knew I'd always fight for what my daughter needs, no matter what. I'm a college student trying to make ends meet while juggling classes and a part-time job at a local coffee shop. My neighbor, who I will call Karen because that's exactly what she is, has 2 kids, a 10-year-old boy and an 8-year-old girl. One day, Karen knocked on my door looking frazzled and desperate. "Hey, I need a huge favor. Can you watch my kids for a few days?" When?" Starting tomorrow, I'm going to Las Vegas with some friends. It's a last minute thing, but I really need this break. I hesitated. I had exams coming up and shifts at work. I don't know, I've got a lot on my plate right now. Please, I'll pay you $30 a day when I get back. The kids are well behaved, I promise. Against my better judgment, I agreed. I could use the extra cash and I figured it wouldn't be too bad. Alright, I'll do it. Thank you so much. You're a lifesaver. The next morning, Karen dropped off her kids with a hasty goodbye and a promise to be back in 4 days. To be fair, the kids were pretty good. They were polite, didn't cause much trouble, and mostly kept themselves entertained. I made sure they were fed, helped them with homework, and even played some board games with them. 4 days passed and Karen didn't show up. I called her, but it went straight to voicemail. Another day went by and still nothing. I was starting to get worried and annoyed. Finally, on the 6th day, there was a knock at my door. It was Karen, looking disheveled and hungover. I asked her, "Where have you been? You said you'd be back 2 days ago." "Yeah, sorry about that. We extended our trip a bit." "Okay, well, the kids are fine. So, about the payment." "Oh, right, about that. I lost all my money gambling. I can't pay you." "What do you mean you can't pay me? We had an agreement." "Look, I'm sorry, but I don't have the money. What do you want me to do?" "That's not acceptable. I took care of your kids for 6 days. I missed work shifts for this, and you owe me $180. "Well, I don't have it. You'll just have to deal with it." I was furious. Without thinking, I blurted out, "If you don't pay me, I'll take you to small claims court." Karen's face turned red. "Are you threatening me? Over $180? You're pathetic." "I'm not threatening you. I'm telling you what will happen if you don't hold up your end of the deal." "Fine. Keep the stupid money. I'm out of here." And just like that, she took off, leaving her kids behind in my apartment. "Wait, you can't just leave your kids here." But she was already gone. I tried calling her repeatedly, but she wouldn't answer. I was stuck with 2 kids who weren't mine, and I had no idea what to do. After a few hours of trying to reach Karen, I decided to take matters into my own hands. I loaded the kids into my old beat-up car and drove to Karen's apartment. But when we got there, the place was dark and empty. No one answered the door. The boy says, "Mom's not home. She does this sometime." The girl adds, "Yeah, she probably went out with her friends again." Feeling defeated and not knowing what else to do, I took the kids back to my place. They seemed unfazed by the whole situation, which made me wonder how often this kind of thing happened. The next morning, I decided I needed to involve the authorities. This was way beyond what I signed up for. I was about to head to the police station when all hell broke loose. It was around 10 p.m. when I heard the loud bang at my door. Before I could even react, my apartment was swarming with police officers in tactical gear, guns pointed at me. "Get down on the ground! Now!" I was in shock. I couldn't understand what was happening. They handcuffed me and dragged me out of my apartment. The kids were crying, confused, and scared. At the police station, I learned the horrifying truth. Karen had filed a police report claiming I had kidnapped her children while she was away on a trip and that I was trying to extort her for a large sum of money. That's not true. She asked me to babysit. She left them with me and wouldn't come back to get them. The detective asks me, "Do you have any proof of this arrangement?" It was verbal, but please, ask the children. They'll tell you the truth. Thankfully, the detective agreed to interview the kids separately, and true to their nature, they told the truth. The older boy even mentioned how I had tried to return them home, but their mom wasn't there. I later knew that the boy said, "She's lying. She's left us with a neighbor because she wanted to go to Las Vegas. She does stuff like this all the time." And the girl added, "Yeah, our neighbor was nice to us. We had fun. Mom's the one who didn't come back when she said she would." The relief I felt was immeasurable. The charges against me were dropped immediately, and suddenly the focus shifted to Karen. She was arrested for filing a false police report, child abandonment, and attempted extortion. But I wasn't done. The ordeal I had been through, the stress, the fear, the humiliation of being dragged out of my home in handcuffs, it was too much. I decided to fight back. I hired a lawyer and filed a civil lawsuit against Karen for emotional distress, defamation, and breach of contract. And in the end, the judge ruled in my favor. and Karen was ordered to pay a substantial settlement that covered my legal fees, missed work, and then some. She was also mandated to attend parenting classes and undergo counseling. As for the kids, they were temporarily placed with their grandparents. I kept in touch with them, occasionally babysitting when their grandparents needed help. And now, whenever someone asks me to babysit, you can bet I get everything in writing. My boyfriend and I met 5 years ago at a local coffee shop. We hit it off immediately, bonding over our shared love of motorcycles and classic cars. He was kind, funny, and had a heart of gold. Despite his rough childhood, he'd made something of himself, building a successful business from the ground up. 2 years into our relationship, I found out I was pregnant. He was overjoyed, even though the baby wasn't his biologically. He treated my son as his own from the moment he was born. We were happy, the three of us. We talked about marriage, about building a future together. But life had other plans. 2 months ago, my boyfriend died unexpectedly in a workplace accident. It was sudden, shocking, and left me reeling. In the midst of my grief, I discovered he'd left a will. He'd never mentioned it to me, but there it was, leaving everything to me and my son. His house, his cars, his motorcycles, all of it. I thought that was it. I thought we'd be able to grieve in peace, surrounded by the memories of the man we loved. But I was wrong. His parents showed up out of nowhere. I'd never met them before. My boyfriend had cut ties with them years ago due to their abusive behavior. But now here they were, acting like they had a right to everything. It started small. They came to visit the house, claiming they wanted to see where their son had lived. I let them in, trying to be understanding despite my boyfriend's warnings about them. And that was my first mistake. The next day I drove by the house to find the driveway empty. All 5 of his cars and both motorcycles were gone. When I called them, they acted like it was perfectly normal. Mother-in-law says, "Oh, we're just storing them at our place for safekeeping. You understand, don't you?" No, I don't understand. Those vehicles belong to me and my son now. You had no right to take them. Don't be silly, dear. Our son wouldn't have left everything to some woman he wasn't even married to. We are his parents. It's only right that we get his things. I was stunned. I tried to explain about the will, but they wouldn't listen. Then I noticed his laptop was missing too. When I asked about it, they brushed me off again. We're just going through his things, making sure everything is in order. But it wasn't just that. They'd started using my boyfriend's Facebook account to sell his belongings. Furniture, appliances, even his clothes. All listed for sale without my knowledge or consent. I felt helpless. The probate hearing wasn't for another month and I didn't know what to do. And that's when I decided to reach out for help. My first stop was a local police station. I explained the situation, showed them the will, and filed charges for theft and trespassing. The police officer tells me, "Ma'am, if you have a valid will leaving you the estate, then yes, they've committed theft. We'll look into this right away." Next, I called a lawyer. I was worried about the cost, but she reassured me. The lawyer says, "Given the assets involved, I'm willing to take this case and front the costs. We'll get paid from the estate once everything's settled, but we need to act fast." Who filed for the probate hearing? I'm not sure. I assumed it was standard procedure. If his parents filed, we need to contest it immediately. I'll look into it and file the necessary paperwork. In the meantime, go back to the house and change all the locks. If they try to enter again, we can add burglary to the charges. I did as she suggested, feeling a glimmer of hope for the first time in weeks. Then, acting on another piece of advice, I called the county's public administrator. "We can certainly step in to protect the estate until the probate hearing. I'll send someone over right away to document everything and secure the property." Over the next few weeks, things moved quickly. The police recovered most of the vehicles, though one car had already been sold. My lawyer filed injunctions to stop the sale of any more property and to freeze my boyfriend's accounts. When the probate hearing finally arrived, I was nervous but prepared. His parents showed up, looking smug until they saw my lawyer. Their faces fell when the judge reviewed the will and declared it valid. The deceased's wishes are clear. The estate is to pass to his partner and her son. Mr. and Mrs. Parents, you had no legal right to remove or sell any of the deceased property. You will return all the items removed and provide an accounting of anything sold. His mother tried to protest, but the judge shut her down. Furthermore, given your actions, I'm ordering you to pay restitution for any items sold or damaged, plus legal fees. If you fail to comply, you'll be held in contempt of court. As we left the courthouse, I knew it wasn't over. We still had to recover everything and deal with the aftermath of their actions. But for the first time since my boyfriend's death, I felt like I could breathe again. It wasn't the future we planned, but I was going to make sure our son grew up knowing how much his dad had loved him. I'm 32 years old, and for the past 7 years, my husband and I have been trying to have a baby. Our struggle with infertility began shortly after we got married. We were so excited to start the family, naively thinking it would happen quickly. Months after months, we'd wait anxiously, only to face crushing disappointment. After a year of trying, we sought medical help. That's when our world turned upside down. Tests revealed I had a condition that made it difficult for me to conceive. We tried various treatments from fertility drugs to in vitro fertilization, but nothing worked. Each failed attempt felt like a piece of our dream was slipping away. Despite the challenges, my husband and I clung to hope. We bought a baby name book and carefully selected names for our future child. We wrote them down on a small note tucked inside the book, keeping it in our bedroom as a symbol of our enduring hope. My sister, on the other hand, seemed to have no trouble having children. She already had 5 daughters and recently announced she was pregnant with her 6th child. While I was happy for her, I couldn't help feeling a bit envious. It wasn't fair, and that's how I felt. 2 weeks ago, my sister went into labor. I rushed to the hospital with my parents and her in-laws. My husband couldn't make it due to work, but I promised to keep him updated. After hours of waiting, we were finally called in to meet the baby. And that's when everything fell apart. Sister says, "We decided to name him Elio." I froze. Elio was the name my husband and I had chosen for our future son. How did she know? I know it was your top choice, but since you won't be having kids after all this time, we decided to use it. No point in letting a good name go to waste, right? I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. Memories flooded back of my sister visiting our house a few months ago. She must have snooped through our things and found the name. How could you do this without talking with your sister first? Mom tells her. It seemed a shame to waste a perfectly good name if she asked me not to use it. I couldn't breathe. Without a word, I turned and left the hospital room. I didn't even congratulate her. I just went home and cried for hours. The next day, my phone rang. It was my sister. "Why are you making such a big deal out of this? I'm hurt you never discussed your baby names with me. You were gatekeeping them, even when you knew you wouldn't have a baby. How could you go out of your way to take the one name my husband and I had picked? You're being too sensitive." I hung up without another word. 2 days later, my parents called to check on me. They suggested I should let it go and apologize for walking out of the hospital. My sister even claimed I had ruined her postpartum time and called me selfish. Not only had my sister stolen the one thing I had left of my dream to be a mother, but now my family expected me to apologize for being upset about it. That's when I decided I'd had enough. I called a family meeting, including my husband this time. When everyone was gathered, I took a deep breath and spoke. "I want you all to understand something. My struggle with infertility has been the most painful experience of my life. That name wasn't just a word to us, it was a symbol of our hope, our dreams. By taking it without our permission, you didn't just steal a name, you stole a piece of our hearts." My sister tried to interrupt, but I held up my hand. "I'm not finished. I've spent years supporting you through your pregnancies and birth, hiding my pain to celebrate your joy. And this is how you repay me? By snooping through my personal things and taking the one thing that was sacred to us?" I turned to my parents. "And you expect me to apologize? For what? For having feelings? For being hurt by this betrayal?" Mom says, "We just thought." No, you didn't think. None of you did. You didn't think about how this would affect me or my husband. You didn't consider our feelings at all. I took my husband's hand and stood up. "We're done now. We're taking a break from this family until you all can understand the depth of what you've done. And sister, I hope every time you call your son's name, you remember the pain you've caused us. With that, we left, and for the first time in years, I felt strong. I knew the road ahead would be difficult, but I also knew that my husband and I would face it together, with or without my family's support.
And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching and see you next time.